Well, friends, as I said at the beginning of Mass, today we are celebrating the feast day of St. Maximilian Kolbe. This is a martyr, a priest, a saint whose life and death, they shine this brilliant spotlight, I think, at least for me, on this question of what is man capable of? That's the question. So like Kolbe, in his life and in his death, he shows us the two extremes, right? On the one hand, you've got extraordinary atrocity in the midst of Auschwitz, and on the other hand, in Kolbe himself, extraordinary love. We are capable of both of these things, right? The saint in Auschwitz is who we're talking about. And I don't know about you, but I personally find the lives and obviously consequently the deaths of the martyrs, I find them to be so challenging. Today in particular, Kolbe I find so challenging because he confronts in me so much that I struggle with. He confronts in me so much that I struggle with because he's holding out to me, he's holding out to us through his witness. He's saying, this is what is possible if you cooperate with God's grace. This kind of response that seems impossible, he's saying it is possible. And that's really challenging, at least for me. I don't know about you. So Kolbe, right, like millions of others, upon entering the death camp in Auschwitz, he was greeted by the commandant, whose name was Fritsch at the time. And Fritsch would say these words, "You have not entered a sanitarium, you have entered a German concentration camp. There is one way out, those chimneys. Jews can live 2 weeks, priests can live a month, the rest of you 3 months." It was especially brutal for priests. Priests were especially hated by the SS, and they were made to suffer all sorts of degradation, torture, humiliation, all sorts of things in a unique way. Dachau in particular was a place where priests were crucified and murdered by the tens of thousands. Anyway, Auschwitz, where Kolbe was taken, it was literally hell on earth. Like, that's where he was. Like, one of the worst places imaginable. And from the belly of the beast, of the worst place imaginable, like this man, this saint being like squeezed and pressed on every side, like is issuing forth not vitriol, not vengeance, not anger, not retribution, but he's issuing forth this fragrance of incredible, merciful, forgiving love. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I look at Kolbe in Auschwitz and I see him like staring back at me. I was looking at a picture of him this morning. A friend of mine sent me one of those beautiful photographs of Kolbe with his dark, just piercing eyes, big long beard. And I just picture him staring at me from Auschwitz and saying, again, do you know what you're capable of, Patrick? Do you know what you can do? Like, the reality, like, all of us have challenges in our lives. We've all got struggles of all sorts. Tough family stuff, tough relationship stuff. Maybe some of us have been really badly hurt by people that really should have loved us and known better. We've suffered the injustice and the evil and the abuse of other people, and I'm sure we've all felt welling up in our hearts at different times this sort of desire for revenge, this desire for retribution. And what does Kolbe say? He says, you can choose love. You can choose love. No one can make you feel anything. You can rise above it through God's grace. He's saying, I don't care how bad it is or how bad it was, you can love. Nobody can make you hate. How did Kolbe get there? To that place. So his biographers, they always point to this episode of his childhood. He was about 12 years old, and this outburst, his mom responds to something he had done. She says, "Son, what is going to become of you?" That question pierced him at 12 years old, and it provoked him to pray, and he asked Our Lady, who he had a lifelong devotion to, he asked Our Lady that question, and he has this vision of Our Lady, and she's presenting him 2 crowns, a white crown and a red crown, the white crown of virginity and the red crown of martyrdom. She said, choose. And Kolbe, at 12 years old, reaches out and grabs both. Like, this was a boy who was like all boys in his age. He was filled with this desire, this passion to fight, and yet in this moment he's transformed and he desires to become this soldier for Christ and this soldier of the Immaculata, a knight of the Queen, right? That desire was being supernaturalized. And he began to live this life of martyrdom. In 1918, he enters the Franciscans. He's this brilliant mind, this brilliant student. By 25 years old, he's already got 2 doctorates. He starts this monthly publication, a daily newspaper, and he's this huge influence on the Catholic scene at the time. He was like a Fulton Sheen before Fulton Sheen, right? Everyone kind of knew his name. And because of that, the Germans wanted to get him to side with them. So they invited him to sign these papers saying, I, Kolbe, am one of you, right? And he refused to do it. He's later arrested in 38 or 39. But anyway, so he's taken to Auschwitz. It's 1941 at this point. It's late July. And a fellow prisoner, he escapes, right? And the retribution that had been ordered down from the Commandant Fritsch was that if a prisoner escapes, all the inmates are gathered in the courtyard, and they have to stand at attention for hours. If you move, you're shot. And then eventually Fritsch would pick 10 men at random and send them into a starvation bunker to die. One of those men, he started pleading and saying, please, I'm a father, I have a family. And at that, Kolbe steps forward. He steps forward. And the commandant says, what does this Polish pig want? And Kolbe says, I'm a Catholic priest. I would like to take this prisoner's place. And Kolbe's sent to that starvation bunker with the 10 other men. It's this tiny cell. Most of them die quickly. The last words of the SS before they closed the door on them was, we will dry you up in here like a turnip. Imagine the hot days in Poland in August. As days went on, as weeks went on, Kolbe was still found in the center of this room, his hands extended, singing, praying, praising the Lord, encouraging the prisoners. You can imagine his singing echoing through the camp was bringing hope and encouragement to the other prisoners, and that was not going to stand for the SS. It was this affront to them. So eventually, after a few weeks, they make the decision to put him down. On the vigil of the Assumption, August 14th, a guard walks in. Kolbe's eyes are fixed in the corner of the room in this sort of trance-like state. It's said that he just simply extended his arm and they injected him with carbolic acid and he dies right there in the cell. When he and his brothers were being taken to Auschwitz, being loaded in the rail car, Kolbe's reported to have said to them, he turns around, he looks at them, and he says, brothers, forget not love. Forget not love. Like, no matter how hard it is, no matter how evil the circumstances, you can choose love. Like Christ did, right? On the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Christ, as St. Paul says, the hope of glory is in you. Christ is in you, and he's in me. So friends, on this feast of Maximilian Kolbe, this incredible martyr, this saint, this challenge to our own selfishness and our own desires to sink down into our baser nature, let's call upon the intercession of Maximilian Kolbe, who chose to love, when love seemed totally impossible. Amen.